Hey guys, tonight we're climbing a few rickety stairs into one of ancient Rome's more lived in neighborhoods, Subura. You'll want to watch your step. There's a cart jammed into an alley, someone's pet chicken loose again, and that smell? Probably fish sauce or something less polite. Welcome to your third floor apartment. You made it home. The walls are thin, the neighbors louder than they need to be, and the stairs, well, let's just say there's a reason you don't own a couch. This is the cozy, chaotic life of a Roman apartment dweller. And believe it or not, it's not all bad. You've got a roof, you've got bread, and on most days, you've even got hot water. Most days. Of course, you probably won't survive this. Between the occasional building collapse, sudden fires, and the wildly popular Roman pastime of tossing chamber pots out windows, ancient city life is more precarious than your average nap. But we're not here for survival. We're here for the gentle, odd comfort of routine. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is right now. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge up the stairs of your insula, a tall Roman apartment block in the notoriously lively Subura district. It's the kind of place where laundry flaps between buildings, like tangled flags of peace, where stray cats outnumber residents, and where the smell of spiced chickpea stew might be followed seconds later by something that smells suspiciously like a shoe. Your apartment sits on the third floor, high enough to avoid street-level noise, low enough that your knees don't actively hate you every day. The building creaks like an old ship when the wind picks up, and the walls are made of plaster so crumbly you could probably carve your initials into them with a spoon. Someone has, in fact. Despite the noise, the dust, and the ever-present fear that your ceiling might become your floor one day, this place has charm. The light slants through the one window just right in the afternoons, throwing golden streaks across the tiled floor, tiles that may or may not be stolen from a more fashionable bathhouse. Historians still argue whether poorer residents actually decorated with hand-me-down mosaics or if that's just an archaeological daydream. Your front door is less of a door and more of a curtain. Privacy is relative. But once you duck inside, there's the comforting sight of your straw mattress in its usual spot, your clay cup balanced precariously on the window ledge, and your roommate's weird wooden mask hanging from a nail, probably warding off spirits or just hiding a hole in the wall. You haven't asked. Outside, the street hums with life. Carts rumble over cobblestones. A neighbor yells at someone for stealing figs again. Someone else, 2 floors below, is loudly reciting very bad poetry. Inside your space, you can almost tune it out. You stretch your arms, the linen of your tunic scratching softly against your skin, and breathe in the familiar mix of smoke, rosemary, and whatever incense your downstairs neighbor insists wards off rats. You share the building with dozens of other families, tradespeople, and a suspiciously quiet man who may or may not be hiding from a tax collector. But this tiny space is yours. The floor is sloped, the air is stuffy, but when you lie down on your woven mat and stare up at the patch of ceiling where plaster flaked off like snow, it feels peaceful. You're one of thousands who live in these narrow tenements. Built fast and cheap, insulae are stacked like loaves of bread, dense, crumbly, and often warm from the communal heat below. The top floors are the cheapest, mostly because climbing 6 stories while carrying a jug of water is a uniquely Roman form of cardio. The wealthy? They live down low with quicker exits and better odds during an earthquake. You? You've got a view of the laundry line and the occasional parade of goats on the rooftop. Inside, your possessions are few: a stool, a lamp filled with olive oil, a scratched wooden comb, and a basket you use for everything from carrying lunch to trapping mice. But there's something freeing about having just enough. No clutter, no choice paralysis. You know exactly where your only spoon is. In the evenings, light filters in as a golden haze while voices echo from the atrium below. A boy sings a market jingle he definitely made up. Somewhere, someone is hammering a sandal back together. A woman mutters a prayer to Juno over a cracked bowl of lentils. It's life, layered in cozy disarray. Sometimes you lie awake and wonder about the people in the brick wall next door. Yes, in the wall. Roman construction was famously full of shortcuts. Pottery shards, chunks of old marble, even bits of bone were stuffed into the concrete as filler. You're technically sleeping between centuries of recycling. If that doesn't lull you into dreams, the rhythmic creak of the upstairs tenants' pacing probably will. Occasionally, rumors sweep through the building. A senator's mistress moved in downstairs. Someone's goat learned how to open shutters. Or, last week's favorite, that the baker's apprentice found a cursed coin in his shoe and hasn't blinked since. Still, for all the chaos, there's routine. The lemony soap your neighbor sells in exchange for leftover wine. The cat that waits at your door every morning like it pays rent. The distant sound of a public bathhouse choir practicing slightly off key. These tiny, repetitive comforts are what make your third floor walk up not just survivable, but livable. And tonight, as the lantern glows a sleepy gold and the day's heat finally slips out the window, you stretch your limbs across your straw mat, tug your wool blanket over your shoulders, and listen to Rome murmur you to sleep. The morning sun hasn't even stretched itself over the rooftops yet, but your building is already awake, and not in the peaceful birds chirping sort of way. No, it's the sound of amphorae being dropped again. That distinct, echoing crunch of terracotta smashing on stone has become part of your daily alarm clock. You groan. Another delivery gone wrong. Someone will be yelling soon. Climbing the narrow stairwell in your insula is always a delicate game of survival, especially this early when groggy tenants and slippery steps make for a perfect comedy of errors, minus the laugh track. You hug the inner wall, where the footing is better, and pray that the man hauling wine jars up from the alley below has tied his sandal thongs properly this time. The stairwell itself is something of a communal adventure. Cracked, slightly slanted steps wind up in a tight spiral, and there's no railing because safety codes aren't invented yet. You pass by a shelf where someone stores pickled onions in reused oil jugs, and because this is Rome, no one thinks that's odd. Someone else keeps a bust of Jupiter tucked behind a stair corner, like a spiritual security guard. It's chipped and faintly terrifying. At the landing, a neighbor nods good morning with a mouthful of bread. She's got a laundry basket balanced on her hip and 3 toddlers orbiting her like chaotic moons. One of them clutches a spoon like a sword. You politely sidestep. This is a normal day. The building's inner courtyard, if you can call a cracked rectangle of stone with weeds and one heroic fig tree a courtyard, serves as a social hub. People store stuff here that won't fit in their units. There are baskets of coal, pots with broken handles, and an abandoned loom that doubles as a cat perch. Sometimes someone dumps a broken stool here, and a week later someone else turns it into firewood. It's kind of beautiful in a dysfunctional sibling sort of way. You look up and see rooftops crisscrossed with laundry lines and precariously balanced clay jugs. Roman apartments were tall but narrow, and the higher you go, the more the building leans ever so slightly, as if it's tired. Rooftop storage is a risky but necessary choice. No one wants to keep firewood in the bedroom, especially when fire is a regular visitor in your part of town. Historians still argue whether rooftop sheds were official features or just resident-built contraptions, but either way, yours currently houses 3 bundles of kindling, 1 broken door, and a mysterious sack no one wants to open. Carrying goods up and down the stairs becomes an art form. You've learned to cradle olive oil jars against your hip, like sleepy babies, and to always use your foot to test a step before committing your full weight. A single loose tile once turned your cousin's leg into a shape only suitable for Roman sculpture. And the noise, oh the noise. Every stomp echoes like thunder. You swear the upstairs baker does laps in wooden clogs for fun. A parrot somewhere screams what sounds like Latin curses. It belongs to an old sailor who insists the bird used to warn of storms. These days, it mostly announces when someone drops a turnip. Shared stairwells also mean shared smells. The waxy tang of burning oil, someone's attempt at boiling fish, and the ever-present whiff of something sour. Could be spoiled milk. Could be your neighbor's foot balm. You no longer care. Somewhere near the rooftop, someone's shouting down about missing laundry. Again. A tunic has either blown away or been swiped by the local laundry thief, a wiry boy with a charming grin and a habit of borrowing nice towels. You half suspect he works for the bathhouse. Despite it all, there's a strange rhythm to the building, like a heartbeat, steady and irregular. People go about their days in a cramped, vertical world where every creak and clatter tells a story. Occasionally, an amphora gets wedged in the stairwell, too big to move, too valuable to smash. It becomes a landmark. Turn left at the olive jar that's been stuck there since Saturnalia, you might tell a visitor. No one ever moves it. It's part of the architecture now. You eventually reach your level and duck back into your unit, after sidestepping a tortoise someone left in a woven basket. Your roommate's awake now, trying to repair a sandal with string that looks suspiciously like it came from your laundry bag. He offers you a crust of bread as a peace offering. You take it. You're not mad. This is just how life works here. Nothing is private. Everything is shared. A bad stare is everyone's bad stare. A noisy parrot is everyone's noisy parrot. There's comfort in the chaos, like being part of a living, breathing organism made of cracked bricks and strange habits. Later today, you'll probably need to haul water from the fountain down the street. There's no guarantee your building's cistern is clean. Last week, someone found a frog in it, and while frogs are not technically a violation of public health laws, they are definitely not ideal in drinking water. Historians still argue whether poor buildings had reliable plumbing, or if it was all just clever improvisation by desperate tenants. You'd vote the latter. For now, though, you nibble your crust of bread, wipe the crumbs on your tunic, and mentally prepare to brave the stairwell again, this time with a basket full of linens and an unhealthy amount of optimism. Because even if the stairs are lethal, even if the amphora drop like divine punishment from Jupiter himself, it's still home. And honestly, that's kind of cozy. Morning in your part of Rome begins not with a rooster's crow, but with a symphony of street noise that's equal parts charming and deeply annoying. Somewhere down the alley, someone's sharpening a blade too close to a chicken, while above you, your upstairs neighbor sneezes with operatic drama 3 times, like clockwork. You're awake now, so you might as well start your day. Your feet hit the cool tile floor. You grab your tunic, still slightly damp from last night's laundry effort, and slip it over your head. A breeze flutters the curtain you call a door, carrying with it the scent of fresh bread and that faint tang of donkey sweat. Outside, the streets are already alive. You step into the stairwell with a small clay cup in hand. It's cracked, slightly lopsided, but it's perfect for collecting your first bit of hot barley water from the corner stall. That's your breakfast ritual, and half the reason you don't bother trying to make food in your cramped quarters. The other half is that your roommate once tried to boil lentils indoors and nearly smoked out the entire second floor. At the bottom of the building, just before you exit, you pause, because right there is the latrina communis, the public toilet. It's a shared space, just like everything else. And by space, we mean a slightly dark alcove with a stone bench, a few worn holes, and a communal sponge on a stick that everyone pretends is cleaner than it is. You'll wait again. Toilet gossip is real, and today's drama is unfolding right here in line. A neighbor swears she saw a senator's wife sneaking down Sabura after dusk. Someone else claims the bakery's new apprentice is actually an escaped soldier with a fake beard. You nod, sip your barley water, and keep your mouth shut. People remember who listens more than who talks. Once outside, you're greeted by a swirl of colors and chaos. Vendors holler about figs, fried dormice, honey cakes, and sandals made entirely from ethical leather, whatever that means. Kids run barefoot, weaving between legs, occasionally chased by equally barefoot chickens. The baker's cart creaks by, piled high with flatbreads and rolls still steaming in the morning sun. You give him a nod, he saves the crusty bits for you. The morning market smells divine. Cinnamon, olives, fresh fish, overly ripe plums. It's a buffet for the nose. You inhale deeply and immediately regret it, as a mule relieves itself just feet away. Rome keeps you humble. You duck into the bakery stall, a hole in the wall with just enough room for 2 customers and a cat that clearly lives there. The baker's daughter hands you your usual, a slice of coarse wheat bread, barely sweetened with honey, and a fig that may or may not have a worm in it. You don't check. What you don't know can't make you gag. With food in hand, you wander to the nearest stone bench. It's half-shaded, mostly clean, and already occupied by 3 elderly men and 1 sleepy dog. You squeeze in, nod hello, and dig into your bread. Around you, Rome buzzes on. This right here is your version of a cafe, and much like your local coffee shop, it's where news spreads fastest. You overhear a carpenter whispering about a new tax on window shutters. A laundress tells of a customer who accidentally dyed his toga pink. And then there's the hot topic of the week. Someone dropped a mosaic tile of Neptune on their own foot, and it might be cursed. Classic. You chomp on your fig, making a mental note to walk past the Temple of Fortuna later, just in case. Gossip in ancient Rome is more than idle chatter. It's survival. Who got evicted? Who's hiring at the docks? Which butcher's meat actually came from a cow and not something else? Even the most mundane detail could affect your day. Like finding out the bakery down the street accidentally mixed chalk into the flour again. Good to know. One of the old men beside you leans in and mutters something about a ghost in the stairwell of your building. You smile politely, but this is not new. Every insula has at least one ghost, usually blamed for missing shoes, strange dreams, or suspiciously loud rats. Historians still argue whether Roman ghost stories were taken seriously or served more as neighborhood entertainment. Either way, you nod gravely. Ghosts deserve respect, if only because you'd rather not risk your laundry getting cursed. Across the street, a young man in a bright purple sash tries to impress passers-by with a small flute. The tune is unrecognizable, but his dog is clearly enjoying it. An old woman tosses him a coin, not for the music, but probably out of pity. He bows dramatically anyway. You finish your bread, licking honey from your thumb, and stand to stretch. Around you, the city feels like it's settling into itself. The rush of morning softening, the shadows shortening, the air warming with promise. Or maybe just body heat and goat breath. Either way, it's alive. Back home, you'll have chores to do. Patching a hole in the curtain door, brushing mouse droppings off your mat again, and trying to convince your roommate that storing figs under the bed is not a clever strategy. But for now, you linger. You watch as the baker's son chases a rolling apple. A fishmonger dozes under a sun-bleached awning. A child paints pictures in the dirt using a chicken feather dipped in, hopefully, mud. There's something peaceful in the way the city ignores its own chaos, as if it knows that life, even in a creaky apartment above a rowdy street, can be gently beautiful. You turn and head back toward your building, still chewing the last seeds of your fig. A breeze lifts your tunic just enough to remind you you're alive. And behind you, the street continues its gentle, endless hum. By the time you get back up to your apartment, legs sore, tunic damp, fig seeds lodged in your molars, the door curtain is flapping open. Which can only mean one thing. Your roommate's monkey is loose again. Technically, it's not his monkey. Technically, it's a gift from his cousin, who won it in a bet, and then promptly relocated to the provinces to avoid tax trouble. That's how small, clever, and extremely loud Simeon ended up in a third-floor Roman apartment. You step inside just in time to see the monkey leap off your water jar, scattering your folded tunics like autumn leaves. It chitters something that sounds suspiciously judgmental and skitters up the storage shelf. You sigh. You were fond of that bread crust. Living with others is normal in Rome. Rent is high, space is tight, and the concept of personal boundaries is fluid. You share your apartment with one roommate, a monkey, and on most weeks, a revolving cast of guests, cousins, and extended family members who just need a place to stay for a few days. That few days can stretch into the next Saturnalia. At the moment, your roommate is trying to convince a cousin from Ostia that 3 people can absolutely sleep on one mat. The cousin looks skeptical. You shoot him a look that says, it's not ideal, but neither is this economy. There's very little privacy in a Roman apartment. Walls are thin, and conversations drift through plaster like smoke. You know your neighbor's cat is sick. You know someone upstairs is experimenting with fermented cabbage again. And you definitely know that the couple on the second floor reconciled last night, loudly, twice. Still, you find small ways to carve out solitude. A nap under the window. A quiet moment with a bowl of olives and the city spread below you. Or if the monkey cooperates, an evening reading a wax tablet in relative peace. That's right, you read. Not everyone does, but you do. You've kept a little collection of wax tablets under your mat, smoothed and reinscribed so many times they shine. Bits of poetry, shopping lists, a very bad love poem you once received and couldn't bring yourself to erase. Historians still debate how literate the average Roman really was. Some say most could manage basic signs and prices. Others argue that reading was still the domain of the upper class. You like to think you fall somewhere in the optimistic middle. As the afternoon heats up, more people drift into the building. One of your neighbors stops by to borrow your stool. She doesn't ask. She just grabs it with a cheerful, I'll bring it back, eventually. You wave. She probably will. A child wanders in chasing the monkey, who now has your spoon. The child sees your fig basket, snatches one, and vanishes down the hall. You make a mental note to stop labeling your food. It only makes it easier for people to know what they've stolen. You've learned to pick your battles, like the time your roommate tried to install a soundproof curtain made from woven straw. It failed spectacularly, but you let him have that illusion for 2 days. Or the time you tried to grow herbs in a pot on the windowsill, only for the monkey to use it as a toilet. You're still not over that one. But for all the chaos, there's warmth in cohabitation. Someone's always around to help patch a tunic. You never eat alone unless you want to. And if you're ever feeling sick, 5 different neighbors will offer unsolicited and wildly contradictory medical advice. One memorable moment, your left eye started twitching last month, and 3 separate people diagnosed you with 1. Excessive vinegar intake, 2. A curse, and 3. Simply being a Pisces. You're not even sure what the last one means, but someone gave you a carved amulet and insisted it would help. You still wear it, just in case. Speaking of odd rituals, your roommate's cousin from Ostia is currently lighting a bundle of dried herbs over the water jar. It clears bad air, he says, wafting smoke toward the ceiling. The monkey coughs theatrically. You open the window. That window, by the way, is your building's greatest treasure. Small, square, framed in chipped stone. But it opens out to a world of rooftops, washing lines, and the soundscape of Rome. From here, you can see the forum's distant columns, a wisp of smoke from a temple, and the dome of a bathhouse shining like a boiled egg in the sun. You settle into your now stoolless corner with a cup of watered-down wine and the last edible fig. Below, street performers banging pots and reciting terrible poetry. It's the same poem every day. You've started mentally editing it. Oh, Daphne, your eyes like olives, you mutter under your breath. But less oily and less likely to be sold in jars. The monkey shrieks with laughter, or maybe it's just screaming, hard to tell. The afternoon drips by. You patch a hole in your tunic with thread that doesn't match. You watch two birds fight over a bread crust on the roof next door. The Ostian cousin falls asleep mid-conversation, head against the wall, mouth open like a fish. And in this odd little shared life, full of stolen fruit, secondhand gossip, and minor animal thefts, there's a strange, undeniable peace. You've stopped expecting perfection. You live with what fits. Sometimes it's chaos. Sometimes it's comedy. Sometimes it's your only spoon, now wedged in a monkey's paw. But it's home. It's midday now, and the heat's becoming unbearable. The sun is pounding your roof, making it feel like an oven with extra steps. You know it's time to head out for water, again. It's not that you don't have a cistern, it's just that your building's communal one never seems to have any water in it when you need it. Sometimes it's because the guy 2 floors above you decided to take a bath. Other times it's because someone left the tap running while well, who knows? Rome's plumbing system might as well have been designed by hopeful children. On your way out, you sidestep your roommate's latest improvement project, a wooden contraption that is somehow both a chair and a ladder, though it's neither functional nor safe. His attempt at carpentry is honestly more charming than practical, which says a lot when you live in a world where people are trying to sell you couches made of stone. Stepping into the street is like walking into a living furnace. The walls of the buildings radiate heat. The road is dusted with flour from the bakery, and everyone's skin glows with a sweaty, hopeful sort of resignation. You roll up your sleeves, adjust your tunic, and follow the others who are all headed toward the water supply, though no one dares to speak too loudly. The midday sun demands respect. The market is alive, though, as always, loud, lively, and covered in flour and fruit stains. The fishmonger's shouting his usual fresh catch from the Tiber, while a small child tries to climb into his stall to grab a piece of dried fish. A woman, clearly in charge of her own small corner of the world, hands you a jug of barley water with a knowing look. You pay, thankful that someone here remembers how to make a decent drink. The taste is almost refreshing, though. Like most things in Rome, it's a little too salty. As you make your way toward the water supply, you pass by a group of street performers. A man with an old lute sings a ballad, his voice a little off-key but still enough to make the crowd pause and listen for a moment. Next to him, a woman juggles clay cups, managing to keep them airborne despite the oppressive heat. A small crowd has gathered, and though you're thirsty, you pause for a moment to watch. Life in Rome is a series of small performances. Whether it's a food vendor trying to get your attention, a beggar telling his latest story, or someone trying to distract you long enough to make a sale. At the water source, there's a line. A small crowd of Romans, their faces in varying degrees of exhaustion. Some are filling jugs, others are gossiping, while a few are just looking out at the horizon, probably dreaming of things they'll never afford. You get in line, trying not to step on anyone's sandals as they shuffle forward, and listen to the stories that swirl around you. One woman talks about the gladiator games she attended, describing the way the sand looked like it was painted red under the hot sun. Another speaks in hushed tones about a strange noise she heard in the temple last night. Perhaps an omen, perhaps not. And then there's the man who swears he saw a ghost in the Forum last week, though you're pretty sure he was just tipsy from the cheap wine sold at the tavern. Have you heard, the woman in front of you asks, her voice low and urgent, that the emperor's cousin is missing? She looks around as if someone might be eavesdropping, and then continues. They say he's hiding in a bathhouse outside the city, disguised as a slave. The man next to her rolls his eyes. You're better off worrying about the local rats, dear. They're plotting to steal your bread while you sleep. The gossip continues, swirling around like the heat that rises from the stones beneath your feet. You're not sure if any of it is true, but it doesn't really matter. The stories are just part of the air you breathe in Rome. Whether it's fact or fiction, the people here have learned that if they stop talking, they might forget how to live. With your jug of water finally filled, you head back toward your building, trying to avoid the stray dogs that chase after the children's breadcrumbs and the occasional parade of donkeys hauling something or someone up the narrow street. The water is heavier than it should be, but it's good, clean water, and you're grateful for it. As you reach your building, you pass by your neighbor, a potter who's working on his latest creation, another jar for the wealthy. He greets you with a grunt, his hands covered in clay, and you offer him a nod. He's probably tired of hearing about your attempts to make wine from figs. The truth is, you'll probably never get it right, but it's a nice thought. You wonder if your failure will be immortalized on a clay pot one day. Historians still argue whether Roman pottery was used more for storage or for fashion, but either way, you're certain that the pots here tell stories, just like the people. Back in your apartment, you set the water jug down on the floor with a soft thud. Your roommate is still attempting to finish a carving of a rooster. He asks you if you've noticed how the wood grain looks like feathers. You squint, but it mostly looks like an angry stick with legs. You don't say anything. Instead, you lean against the wall, wiping your brow and staring out the window. The city's hum is constant, an endless soundtrack that plays beneath everything you do. The birds are louder than usual today, and you think you hear the faint strumming of a harp somewhere in the distance. It's almost peaceful. But peace in Rome is fleeting, like the shadows at the end of the day. You get up and open the window wider, just to let the cool evening air slip in, and for a moment, everything feels just right. Tomorrow, you'll get more water. The monkey will probably get loose again, and someone will most certainly drop another amphora. But tonight? Tonight is for breathing in the world outside, where life is a never-ending story, and everyone's got their part to play. The evening light fades gently, but the noise of the city seems to grow stronger as dusk sets in. You've managed to slip into a moment of stillness, a rare gift in a place like this. The streets below begin to empty, the vendors packing up their stalls, the children being called in for supper. The only sounds now are the occasional screech of a wheelbarrow and the murmured conversation of neighbors as they prepare for the night. But not you. Not yet. You're standing at the window, watching the city settle like it's letting out a collective sigh. Rome, as always, is on the edge of sleep, but never fully resting. From here, you can see the faint glow of a distant fire from the marketplace, the flicker of lanterns lighting up the alleyways, and the slow return of your neighbor's goat, which appears to have eaten something it really shouldn't have. You think it might be a door frame, but no one seems too concerned. The goat is an established member of the community. Inside, your room is starting to cool down, the warmth of the day giving way to the slight chill that sweeps in when the sun's absence is felt. You shift your attention back to the space around you. Not that there's much to focus on. A corner of straw matting, a jug of wine half finished, a couple of incomplete sketches on your wax tablet. The room is small, but there's a sense of contentment in that. You don't need much, and somehow that makes everything a little more comfortable. Your roommate is, predictably, still working on the wooden rooster. It's a mystery why he's so focused on it, considering it looks less like a rooster and more like a stubborn log with feathers. He mutters to himself as he scrapes at the wood with a dull knife, the sound echoing in the silence between your shared tasks. Once in a while, he looks up at you for approval. You give him the best encouraging nod you can muster, even though you're not sure what he expects from this project. It's not like he's planning to sell it, and honestly, you doubt anyone would buy it if he did. At least it keeps him distracted. It's better than the time he spent 6 weeks trying to build a chair that was technically a ladder and only semi-functional as a chair. When he gets that look in his eyes, you know it's time to brace yourself for something that will either fall apart or be used in the most perplexing way possible. The day's dust lingers in the corners of the room, settling like a blanket you can't shake off. It's hard to keep everything perfectly clean here. Between the constant movement of people, the steady flow of goods and animals, and the general lack of proper cleaning supplies, the dirt is a part of life. You've long since stopped trying to wipe it all away. Instead, you simply embrace it as part of your charm. In the corner, your neighbor's cat has chosen the best place to nap, on your cloak. It's a nice cloak, but it's also the only one you have, so you sigh and gently nudge the cat off, though it doesn't seem to mind in the least. Cats have that power, you think? If they want something, they just take it. Like Rome, where nothing seems to be fully yours, but somehow everything belongs to everyone. The atmosphere is getting more peaceful now, but you know that won't last for long. The first signs of evening revelry are starting to make themselves known. Someone's already setting up a lyre on the street, and the sound of soft laughter drifts up from the alley. Someone will be playing dice in the courtyard soon, and there's always that one guy who never seems to understand the rules but insists on playing anyway. No one minds. In fact, it's part of the rhythm of the neighborhood, the ebb and flow of life. It might not be perfect, but it's yours, and that's something. For now, though, you have time. Time to reflect, time to listen, time to simply exist in this shared space, this building that creaks and groans under the weight of its history. The insula might not be much in the grand scheme of things, but it's enough. The fact that you're still here, still managing to live and laugh and find small moments of peace in the chaos of Rome, is a triumph in itself. As the sun dips lower, you finally lay down on your straw mat, the coolness of the evening creeping in. The sounds of the city continue, but now they feel less intrusive, almost like a lullaby in the background. The flicker of a distant torchlight dances through your window, casting long shadows across the room. And you close your eyes, letting the city's rhythm cradle you into a gentle, inevitable sleep. It's funny, you think just a few hours ago, the street felt like it was alive with energy, a whirlwind of noise and movement. And now, in the quiet of the evening, it feels almost calm, like you're floating in the middle of the city, suspended in its pulse. The cat is back on your cloak, curling up into a ball, and you let it stay there, feeling the warmth radiating from its body. The wooden rooster still sits beside you, unfinished but oddly comforting in its imperfection. You drift off, the last remnants of daylight fading into the dark, and the sounds of Rome's eternal hustle fade with it. The night falls over Rome in that peculiar way, where the city doesn't exactly sleep, but simply transitions into another form of life. Quieter, though no less vibrant. The streets are dim now, lit by lanterns that flicker like fireflies, casting long shadows against the buildings. You can still hear the distant murmur of voices, a soft symphony of laughter, gossip, and the occasional rowdy celebration. The sounds of Rome always linger, even when the world around you is at rest. You wake up in the dark, not to the cold chill of early morning, but to a warm sort of silence that has settled over your apartment. The occasional creak from the building's old beams reminds you that, yes, you're still alive, still here in the midst of all this. You pull yourself upright, careful not to disturb the cat, which has curled up perfectly into the hollow left in your cloak, claiming it as its own personal nest. The night outside your window is calm, the city's pulse softened by the blankets of dusk. A few revelers can be heard shouting on the street below, probably on their way back from the tavern. The familiar sound of a woodworker hammering away at some new piece of furniture echoes from a neighboring apartment, though you know it's the kind of sound that could easily be ignored if you weren't paying attention. The buildings all around you are full of life, yet somehow, it feels like they're all sleeping too. And so, for a brief moment, it's just you, your straw mat, and the quiet city around you. You reach for the jug of watered down wine that you've left beside your mat, sipping from it thoughtfully. It's not much, but it's yours. Some nights, it's more than enough to lull you back into a peaceful sleep. It's simple, too simple maybe, but that's the beauty of it. Rome is full of complexities, but here, in your apartment, it's just a quiet space to breathe. The air is still warm, thick with the lingering humidity of the day, but it's a gentle warmth, the kind that makes the night feel like it could stretch on forever. You pull the blanket up over your shoulders, settle deeper into your mat, and let your mind wander. The events of the day come rushing back. The early morning bread run, the unexpected gossip at the water fountain, the oddly charming chaos of your building. For a moment, you let yourself forget about the creaking beams, the leak in the ceiling, and the persistent squeak of the stairs. Instead, you let the noise fade into the background, like a song you've heard so often that you don't even need to listen to it anymore to know it's there. Your apartment is small, but it's comfortable. The walls are thin, but you've grown used to it. The constant sounds from neighbors' apartments, whether it's the rhythmic pounding of someone making sandals, the clattering of cooking pots, or the gentle whistling of the baker as he prepares his dough in the early hours, become a lullaby in their own right. It's a song of survival, of adaptation, and, above all, of routine. Even when you can't control the noise, the chaos, or the unpredictability of your environment, there's comfort in knowing what to expect. You can hear the monkey next door, somewhere in the building, making a noise that can only be described as a shrill version of a cough. It's as if the animal is trying to clear its throat in a way that only adds to the already present noise of the building. You almost smile at the absurdity of it. You're so used to the monkey now, and though it's a nuisance, it has become part of the family in a way. You can't remember what life was like before the monkey arrived, and in truth, it doesn't matter. It's a reminder of how quickly life changes and how quickly we become accustomed to the unfamiliar. But there's also peace in that change, isn't there? In how the human mind, no matter how chaotic the circumstances, adapts. The shift from the hum of the marketplace to the stillness of night. The move from the bustling shared spaces of the insula to the small, personal cocoon of your apartment. You've come to find comfort in that transition, even if it's filled with noise and clutter. Outside, a dog barks, but it's not your dog. It's not even your neighbor's dog. It's just a stray doing what strays do, wandering the streets and filling the spaces with sound. The dog's bark is followed by the laughter of someone who's had just a little too much wine. And for a second, you consider getting up to see what's going on. But you don't. You stay right where you are, wrapped in the warmth of the night, with your blanket pulled up around your shoulders, and the faint scent of your neighbor's supper floating in the air. The moonlight shines through your window, reflecting off the worn tiles on the floor, and casting faint, delicate shadows across the room. The light dances in your small space, the shadows shifting with every breeze that sneaks in from the street. It's quiet here, in this tiny corner of Rome, as though the city has paused for just a moment to let you breathe. And so, you do. You breathe in the air of this old city, dusty, warm, full of life and noise, and let the familiar rhythm of it soothe you into sleep. You'll wake up tomorrow just as the sun rises and face the same routine, the same sounds, the same minor annoyances. But for now, in this space, you are safe, you are whole, and you are part of something much bigger than yourself. Tomorrow, you'll carry the water again. The monkey will probably escape. Someone will inevitably shout from the balcony about missing laundry. And the city will keep turning, spinning on its ancient axis. But tonight, there's peace in the chaos. And that is enough. The sound of the night is different now, softer, more distant, as if the whole city has slipped into a more contemplative mode. The occasional scream of a distant rooster seems less frantic, more like a gentle reminder that the night is wearing on, slowly drifting towards the earliest stirrings of dawn. The quietest moments in the insula, where the old walls seem to settle just a little deeper into themselves, become part of your rhythm, a gentle invitation to rest. You turn over on your mat, feeling the slight chill of the stone floor seep up through the thin straw. It's cold enough to make your skin prickle, but not enough to be uncomfortable. The coolness is a pleasant contrast to the stuffy warmth that hung in the air earlier. You stretch, letting the muscles in your back unwind from the tightness of the day and the tension of living in a city that never really sleeps. In the stillness, it almost feels like the world has paused for a heartbeat, Rome itself, taking a breath. There's a crack of wood from the neighboring room, your roommate still working away at whatever odd little project has his attention tonight. The faint smell of burnt wood drifts through the walls, a scent that has become a familiar marker of his hobbies, his latest obsession, the carving of wooden creatures. is occupying his mind, though it's unclear whether he's trying to make something beautiful or simply pass the time until dawn breaks. The monkey, meanwhile, has found a new perch at the foot of your mat, curled up like an afterthought, still snoring loudly. You can't remember when it last ran wild through the apartment. Today, the little beast is content to let the evening pass in gentle slumber. But that's the thing about living in Rome. It's always moving, always changing, but in such subtle, almost imperceptible ways. Your insula has its own rhythms and pace, and in many ways, they don't change as quickly as the outside world. You've come to embrace that, to find a sort of stability in the tiny, constant shifts of your everyday life. The routines you rely on feel like a thread weaving you through time, linking you to the millions who have walked this path before you, sweeping dust from floors, scraping vegetables for dinner, and hanging laundry in the same dusty alleys. Sometimes, like tonight, it's easy to forget the chaos that comes with living in the heart of a sprawling empire. Easy to ignore the challenges, the crush of bodies, the noise that spills out of every corner. But it's these very things that make your life here what it is: loud, messy, and occasionally frustrating, but yours. As you lay back, staring at the ceiling, now barely visible in the dim light of your fading oil lamp, you think about how little you truly own, yet how much you feel connected to this place. The only things that truly belong to you are the things that can't be taken away. Your thoughts, your memories, your presence in this city. The rest? It's all temporary, fleeting. Just another day in the life of a Roman apartment dweller. And somehow that's more than enough. You glance over at your table, where the bits of your evening meal are still scattered. Half-eaten figs, a jug of wine that's grown warm, and a crumpled piece of parchment with a hurriedly written note, probably something about buying more bread, though you can't quite remember what it was. You'll get to it tomorrow, though, maybe. For now, you let the silence fill your senses, allowing it to smooth over your mind like a soft blanket. Your body sinks deeper into the straw mat, the gentle hiss of the occasional breeze through the window lulling you further. It's cool enough now that you can sleep without the sweat sticking to your skin, but still warm enough to remind you of the day's heat. It's a strange balance, comfortably warm and cool at the same time. But it's perfect, just the way your apartment has always been. The noise outside has slowed down to a whisper, the final shouts from the street turning into the low hum of nighttime birds settling on the rooftops. The stars above are just a little clearer now, even if their light is faint and distant. You breathe in the night air, a little musty, a little smoky, with just a touch of rosemary, and let it fill your lungs. This is Rome, in its stillness, in its small corners, where even the most chaotic moments can feel like a strange sort of peace. And as the shadows deepen, and the last traces of light fade from your window, the world outside grows quieter still, as though the whole of Rome is winding down with you. The creaking of the building, the occasional murmur from your neighbors, the faint shuffle of sandals on cobblestones, all of it becomes part of the fabric of the night, part of the slow, insistent rhythm of life here. You drift off again, sinking into sleep with the distant knowledge that tomorrow the sun will rise again. It will rise on another day of this strange, busy, imperfect life in the heart of an empire. But for now, it's just you, the warm night, and the still comforting hum of Rome. Tomorrow will be just like today in all the best ways, and that somehow feels like enough. The day breaks like any other, with the first rays of the sun creeping slowly over the rooftops. You wake to the familiar hum of the city, the soft rustle of the curtain at your door, and the distant calls of vendors setting up their stalls. It's early, too early, but you know better than to try to sleep through it. Rome doesn't allow you that luxury. The city, it seems, is always awake before you. You stretch, feeling the familiar tightness in your shoulders as your body resettles into the day. You rise slowly from your mat, taking your time. There's no rush, not yet. The coolness of the morning air is a welcome contrast to the stuffy warmth of last night, and you let the silence in the room wash over you before stepping out into the corridor. The building's stairwell greets you with its usual creaks, and you navigate the familiar steps down, mindful of the loose tile on the fourth floor. You've long since learned the places to avoid on your descent. The creaky steps, the hole in the wall, the part of the staircase that gives way underfoot if you're not careful. These are all part of the architecture now, as familiar as the back of your hand. In a way, you trust them because they've been there so long. As you reach the bottom of the building, the usual morning chorus begins. The faint clatter of pots and pans, the soft murmur of voices as your neighbors start their daily routines, the intermittent squeak of the door to the communal latrine. Rome is waking up, each person playing their part in this daily collective ritual. You step outside into the street. The air is crisp, but quickly warming as the sun rises higher. Already, the market is coming to life. A few vendors are setting up their carts, the smell of freshly baked bread and fried food hanging in the air. The street, which only hours ago seemed almost abandoned, is now a lively mix of people, animals, and the occasional stray cart. Children race between legs, barefoot and carefree, while the elderly begin to gather for their daily gossip. The contrast from night to day is almost jarring. The stillness of the night, where the city seemed to hold its breath, is replaced by the bustle of morning, where life is in full swing. It's like living in two worlds at once, one that never truly sleeps and one that only wakes up when it has to. You're right in the middle of it, as always. You make your way to the market. There's a certain beauty to it, in how everything seems to unfold so naturally, like it's all part of an unspoken agreement between the vendors and the people who come to buy. You know who will be selling bread, who will have the best figs, who always has that mysterious jar of fermented olives that tastes a little too sour for comfort. Each corner of the market has its own rhythm, its own flavor. You take in the sights and smells with the kind of deep, reflexive appreciation you've cultivated over the years. It's not much, but it's your part of the world. It's home. You make a quick stop at the bakery stall, grabbing a crust of bread that's still warm from the oven. It's rough, dense, the kind of bread you have to chew a little longer, but that's part of its charm. The baker's daughter waves at you as she hands over the bread, and you smile back. It's always the same, and yet it feels like a small but necessary comfort, this ritual of buying bread, of acknowledging each other's presence in a place that's too big to know everyone's name, but somehow small enough to feel personal. You pass by the butcher's stall next, his knives gleaming in the morning light, the smell of meat thick in the air. He's not a talkative man, preferring to let his cuts of meat speak for themselves. But you catch his eye as you walk by, and he nods in acknowledgement. It's an unspoken bond, one that connects everyone in this marketplace, even if no words pass between you. You might not know each other's lives, but you know the rhythm of the market, and that's enough. As you walk back toward your building, the sun is climbing higher, casting long shadows across the cobblestones. The street is beginning to fill up. More people are out now, making their way to the bathhouse, to the forums, to the various shops that line the city's endless streets. There's a hum of energy that's impossible to ignore. It's the sound of life, the sound of survival. Back at your apartment, you're greeted by the familiar sight of your roommate sitting cross-legged on the floor, sharpening his knife. The monkey, of course, is nowhere to be seen, which can only mean one thing: trouble is afoot. You glance around, looking for signs of chaos, but it's oddly quiet. Perhaps the little creature is still sleeping off last night's antics. Either way, you know it won't be long before the mischief begins again. You set the bread down, take a deep breath, and let the noise of the city seep in. It's a new day, but in many ways, it feels the same as the one before it, and that's just fine with you. Because in the end, it's these routines, these small, comforting rituals that give life its meaning. You take another moment to just exist in the space between the hum of the city and the silence of your apartment. Rome might be vast, chaotic, and at times overwhelming, but for now, it's your home. And that's all you need. For a while, you just sit there, listening to the city wake up around you, the sound of the first footsteps of the day echoing on the stones below, and the comforting realization that no matter how chaotic, how noisy, or how unpredictable your little corner of Rome can be, this is where you belong. The day stretches out before you, lazy and unhurried, as if Rome itself has no particular rush to be anywhere. There's a certain freedom in that, a beauty in the knowledge that you have the luxury to go at your own pace, even as the world moves at a speed that sometimes feels too fast to catch up with. Life in your corner of the city is full of contradictions, but that's what makes it so remarkably comfortable. The chaos is predictable, the routine is comforting, and no one really expects anything extraordinary to happen. Not today, anyway. You nibble on the bread you bought earlier, the crust crunching lightly between your teeth, and let your mind wander. Your eyes drift over the small details of the apartment, the ones that fade into the background most days but come to life in moments like this. The chipped edge of the table, the pile of linen stacked in the corner, the wooden spoon you use to stir your stew every evening. They're nothing really, just simple objects that form the skeleton of your daily life, but they're yours, and in a way that makes them valuable. Your thoughts turn to the city outside. Rome is alive, pulsing with energy, and yet there's a strange, almost mystical stillness to it. When you take a moment to observe, the buildings, ancient and modern, lean against each other like old friends, worn down by time but still standing strong. The streets are busy, as always, filled with the ebb and flow of people hurrying to their destinations, but there's something soothing in the knowledge that, at least for now, you're not one of them. You don't need to be in a hurry. The world can wait. The faint sound of chatter filters through the window, a blend of languages and voices, all of them mingling together in that comforting hum that marks every day here. There's the baker singing softly to himself as he arranges his loaves, the distant clink of someone washing pots, and the muffled sound of a child's laughter as it echoes from the courtyard. It's this symphony of life, this everyday rhythm, that makes you feel rooted in a way you never could have imagined. For a brief moment, you think about your family, your origins. Are they still out there, somewhere? Are they thinking of you as you go about your day, scraping by in the heart of this sprawling empire? You wonder if they would recognize the life you've built here, the simple pleasures, the quiet joys, the small moments that make up the fabric of existence. You suppose they would. After all, you're still you, aren't you? You still find happiness in the mundane, in the ordinary. The rest, as they say, is just window dressing. You finish your bread, wiping your fingers on the edge of your tunic as you contemplate the next few hours. The day will be filled with small tasks, the ones that form the backbone of your existence, gathering water, mending the roof, sweeping the floor, feeding the cat. There are always things to do, but there's no rush, no deadline. No one is waiting for you to become something more than you already are. There's a strange kind of peace in that realization. You belong exactly as you are to this city, to this life, and nothing more is required of you. It's an odd luxury, one you never take for granted. The sounds outside begin to change. The heat of the afternoon has started to settle in, and with it comes a quieter energy. The chatter of the street fades slightly as people seek shelter from the sun, moving indoors or ducking into the shade of the nearest building. Even the street performers seem to have retreated, leaving the air free for the occasional creak of a cart's wheels or the clink of a neighbor's ironwork. You stand up and stretch, stepping toward the window to look outside. From here, you can see the domes of distant temples, the thin strips of blue sky between the rooftops, and the occasional figure moving through the streets, their form silhouetted against the sun. It's an ordinary view, nothing special, but it feels like everything. You take a deep breath and step back from the window, letting the familiar noise of the street wash over you once more. The monkey, finally awake, is now swinging from the rafters, making its usual noise, and your roommate is once again poring over his unfinished carvings. You almost laugh at the absurdity of it all. Some things never change. Later, you'll grab your water jug, make your way to the fountain, and stand in line for what feels like hours, but it's a small price to pay for the opportunity to connect with those around you. A few words exchanged, a bit of gossip traded, and then you're back, walking up the stairs again, feeling the familiar strain in your legs, hearing the creak of the floorboards, knowing that home is just a few steps away. A routine, yes, but a comforting one, woven into the fabric of your existence like the very stones beneath your feet. As the afternoon wanes and the sunlight softens, you settle back into your mat, the warm, familiar weight of the day pressing in around you. The city, in its infinite complexity, continues its endless dance, and you are a part of that dance, moving to a rhythm that has been shaped by centuries of footsteps, by the rise and fall of empires, by the ebb and flow of everyday life. And in this moment, you realize something simple, something beautiful. No matter how many days pass, no matter how many tasks you complete, no matter how many times you walk those stairs or visit the market, it will always be enough. Because in Rome, even the ordinary is extraordinary in its own way. And you are a part of it. You always have been. The late afternoon light pours in through the facades through the window, casting long shadows across your floor. The warmth of the sun is starting to ebb, leaving behind a coolness that you welcome with a soft sigh. The day's heat, while always oppressive, is beginning to mellow. And it's in these moments, as the sky shifts from gold to pink, that Rome feels most alive. You take a seat by the window and watch the transformation of the city. The busy street below starts to quiet down, the noise of vendors haggling and children playing receding as the evening sets in. People are heading home after a long day, some with baskets full of goods, others with faces creased in the exhaustion that comes from trying to survive another Roman day. They pass in and out of shadow, their movements slow, their voices a mere murmur compared to the clamor of midday. The day is fading, and with it, the pulse of the city begins to settle. You feel it in your bones, that subtle shift in the rhythm. This is the moment where everything slows down, when the world lets out a collective exhale. It's almost peaceful, but not quite. You're still surrounded by the hum of 1,000 lives, still tethered to the city, to this place that never truly rests. You lean back against the wall, the coolness of the stone pressing against your back. Your thoughts wander, drifting through the events of the day, and for a brief moment, you lose track of time. The world outside continues its march, but in here, in this small apartment, it feels like you're standing still. You glance over at your roommate, who's still at it with his wooden carving. The half-finished rooster now looks more like a confused bird than any kind of poultry. He hums softly to himself, lost in his own little world. For all his eccentricities and quirks, he's part of the rhythm of your life now. He's a fixture, like the walls, the roof, the stairwell. His presence, though often a source of minor frustration, has become as predictable as the sunrise. The monkey, of course, has found its usual perch, now perched atop a pile of linen, surveying the room as if it owns the place. And maybe, for all you know, it does. At least, it seems to think it does. It sniffs at the air, lets out an occasional chitter, and blinks lazily at the dust drifting in the fading sunlight. You almost smile at its nonchalance. In the grand scheme of things, the monkey is a perfect representation of Rome itself, unbothered, unfazed. Just here, taking it all in. You wonder if the monkey knows how to relax better than any of us. Outside, the last few vendors are packing up their stalls, wrapping cloths around their wares, securing carts. The evening market is coming to a close, the stalls giving way to the twilight. But even as the street empties out, you can hear faint laughter, the sound of a late-night gathering somewhere down the alley. The city doesn't truly stop. Not here, not now. And somehow you're content with that. It's easy to forget how full life is, how layered, how rich with these simple moments. You slip out of your apartment, leaving the door curtain to flutter gently behind you, and make your way down the stairs. It's cool now, the air carrying with it the faint scent of firewood and something sweet, maybe honey or figs. The street is quieter than earlier, but it's still alive, a blend of murmurs and footsteps that echo off the stone buildings. You catch the sight of a few late night revelers heading toward the tavern, their laughter cutting through the soft evening air. You move slowly through the street, the cobblestones worn smooth by centuries of feet, and you find yourself at the fountain. A few others are here, drawing water, filling jugs, exchanging a few quiet words. The rhythm of this task is ingrained in you. It's something you've done 1,000 times, and yet it always feels fresh, like it's your first time. As you wait for your turn, you look around at the familiar faces, those who make up this patchwork of life. The young woman from the bakery who sells you your bread in the morning, the old man who repairs sandals, the children who race through the streets. They're all part of your world now, woven into the fabric of your daily life, just as you are part of theirs. It's a humbling realization, the knowledge that you're just one small piece of a much larger picture. Your life, your routines, your tiny corner of the city, they're all woven together with everyone else's. Sometimes it's easy to forget that, to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of your own small world. But then, in a moment like this, you remember. You are part of something much bigger, something that has existed for centuries and will continue long after you're gone. And that thought, though humbling, is also oddly comforting. You fill your jug with water, the cool liquid splashing gently against the sides. You thank the vendor, exchange a few words about the weather, and head back toward your building. The night is now fully settled in, the sky a deep navy blue, and the stars are just beginning to emerge, their light soft and distant. As you climb the stairs back to your apartment, the familiar creak of the steps underfoot, you realize that you're not just going home. You're returning to your place in this great, sprawling city, to the rhythms of daily life, to the quiet comfort of the evening routine. The world is full of noise, full of energy, full of chaos. But here, in this small space, you find peace. You settle back onto your mat, the sounds of Rome slipping gently into the background as you finally relax. The monkey, now curled into a tight ball, sleeps soundly at the foot of your mat, and your roommate continues to carve, lost in his thoughts. The day has passed, the city has moved on, and for tonight you're content to simply exist in the quiet ebb of it all. Tomorrow, you'll wake up to the same world, the same noise, the same routine. But for now, it's enough. Night has fully descended, and Rome is cloaked in a blanket of silence that feels almost surreal. The usual hum of activity, the voices, the sounds of the street, everything has softened to a quiet murmur. In your small apartment, you lie beneath your worn blanket, feeling the familiar coolness of the evening air slipping through the window. The last traces of sunlight are fading behind the rooftops, and you can hear the faint clink of distant pottery being packed away as the last vendors close up shop for the night. You inhale deeply, taking in the smells of the city, dust, rosemary, the faint burn of evening fires, and the lingering scent of cooked food from the neighboring insula. The air feels thicker now, less oppressive than the heat of the afternoon, but still warm enough to remind you of the busy day that's come to an end. The world is settling into its own rhythm, and you, here in this tiny room with only the sounds of your own thoughts to keep you company, are caught somewhere between it all. You hear the soft creak of floorboards outside your door as someone moves through the building, probably on their way to the communal latrine, or perhaps just making their way to another room. The night has a way of making the familiar sound different. The footsteps in the hall, the murmur of conversations, even the stray dog barking at something unknown outside, everything seems amplified now that the world around you has quieted down. You can almost feel the rhythm of the city itself, the heartbeat of a place that has seen thousands of years, each generation adding to the story of this place. You glance at the small wooden table near your mat, where your barely finished meal still sits, a few remnants of bread, an empty wine jug, and a small bowl of olives. You push the bowl aside and pull your blanket closer around your shoulders, letting the weight of the world fall away for just a moment. There's a peace in this, an unspoken comfort in knowing that you're part of something much larger than yourself, that tomorrow you'll return to the same tasks, the same rhythms, the same routines. It might sound monotonous, even dull to some, but here in this space, it's perfect. The monkey, now resting quietly in its usual corner, lets out a soft chirp, the sound almost imperceptible in the stillness of the room. You smile slightly, half amused at how, even in this quiet moment, the monkey still manages to remind you of its presence. It's funny. This little creature, wild and unruly as it may be, has a way of sneaking into your thoughts at the oddest moments, becoming a small part of your world, like so many other details that fill the gaps in your daily life. Outside your window, the first stars begin to twinkle, distant and faint, but always there, always steady. The cool breeze has picked up a bit, a welcome relief from the heaviness of the day. You stretch slightly, curling deeper into the blanket, feeling your muscles unwind as you begin to relax fully into the moment. The sounds of Rome, the familiar creaks and murmurs, fade to the background as you let sleep take over. Before you drift off, you find yourself thinking about the little things, the quiet moments that add up to a life. The way the neighbor's cat always seems to be in your way when you're leaving for the market, the low murmur of conversation that drifts through your walls in the evenings, the smell of bread that fills the street as it bakes fresh each morning. These are the moments that fill your days. These small, seemingly insignificant details make up the tapestry of your life in Rome. They are nothing, and yet they are everything. Your eyes grow heavier as sleep tugs at you, the exhaustion of the day finally catching up to you. Tomorrow will be another day in this rhythm, this endless, gentle cycle of routine. You'll rise with the sun, gather your water, make your way to the market, and live in the same familiar rhythm that has sustained generations before you. The world will continue to turn as it always has, and you will continue to play your small part in it, content in the knowledge that, for tonight, you are at rest. The monkey shifts in its sleep, and your roommate hums quietly to himself, perhaps lost in the world of his unfinished carvings. The room feels warmer now, wrapped in the comforting quiet of the night. You smile softly and close your eyes, letting the sounds of Rome fade away into the background. And as you drift off to sleep, one thought lingers in your mind. Rome might be chaotic, unpredictable, and overwhelming, but in these small, quiet moments, it is home. Morning light filters through your window, creeping in between the cracks of your curtain door like an invitation to rise. The city is already awake, and you can hear the first murmurs of the day, footsteps on cobblestone streets, the clink of pots, the soft calls of the first market vendors setting up their stalls. It's still early, the sun not yet fully over the rooftops, but you can feel the pulse of the city beneath the quiet hum. Rome has a way of never quite sleeping, even in the deepest hours of the night. The world here is always in motion, always pushing forward. You stretch slowly, muscles stiff from the awkward angles you slept in, and reach for the water jug beside your mat. The room still feels cool, the air refreshing and clean after the stuffiness of yesterday's heat. A soft breeze drifts in from the street, carrying with it the faint scent of fresh bread, the unmistakable tang of garlic, and something sweet, maybe figs or honey. The sounds of your building echo in the quiet, each creak and groan of the ancient walls as familiar as the rhythm of your own heartbeat. You pull yourself up and step onto the cool stone floor, your bare feet brushing against the rough tiles. The small space feels even smaller in the early morning light, but somehow that only makes it feel more like home. It's a humble apartment, no more than a few rooms pieced together with whatever materials were available, but it's yours. And in a city like Rome, where people can be easily lost in the crowd, that sense of ownership, no matter how small, carries with it a quiet pride. Outside the apartment, you can hear your neighbors stirring. Someone's already sweeping the steps. Another is calling to a child, and someone else is muttering about forgotten bread. You can tell it's going to be a busy day, just like every day in Rome. You think of the water fountain, the trip you'll make to fill your jug, the market you'll visit for bread and figs, and all the little moments in between that make up the fabric of your day. You glance over at your roommate, still asleep on the other side of the room, curled up in a tangle of blankets. His half-finished wooden rooster sits on the floor beside him, looking even more like a confused log than the last time you saw it. The monkey is still in its corner, curled up in a ball, twitching slightly in its sleep. For a moment, you just watch the scene, this quiet chaos that is your home. It's comforting in a way you can't quite explain. The predictability of it all. You step carefully around the piles of clothes, stray objects, and bits of linen that clutter the room, making your way to the window. From here, you can see the rooftops of the insulae across the street. Their terracotta tiles worn smooth from years of exposure to the elements. A few early risers are already up there, hanging laundry or gathering herbs, their figures silhouetted against the rising sun. It's not a view most people would envy, but to you, it's the perfect view of the city. A city that is as much about its small details as it is about its grandeur. You turn back to your space, your apartment, and feel a sense of calm settle over you. There's something oddly reassuring about the mess, the clutter, the small annoyances of daily life. The sense that things aren't always perfect, but they are yours. The imperfect routines, the noise, the constant shifting of space. These things are the heartbeat of the city, and they are the heartbeat of your own little world. Today will be just like yesterday, and tomorrow will be just like today. And somehow that thought brings you peace. The world outside may be full of chaos, of politics, of war, of empires rising and falling. But here, in this little corner of Rome, it's enough to simply live, to breathe, to be. You don't need to be part of the grand sweep of history to find meaning. Here in this small apartment, in this chaotic, crowded city, you are part of something just as important. With a final stretch, you grab your jug and make your way to the door, stepping into the hallway. The day has begun, and it's time to face it. You step into the streets, the sunlight warming your face, the familiar sounds of the market beckoning you forward. The world is busy, as it always is, but you're a part of it, and that's enough. Today will bring more of the same. The trip to the fountain, the visit to the market, the quiet moments between tasks that make up the rhythm of your life. And though Rome may seem overwhelming at times, today you find comfort in the predictability of it all. The bustle, the noise, the smells, the people, they are all part of this ancient city, just as you are part of its unspoken, ever-turning wheel. As you make your way down the stairs, stepping carefully over the loose tile that's been there for as long as you can remember, you think about how much the world has changed, how much it will continue to change, but how the little things, the small routines, the familiar faces, remain constant. You pause for a moment at the door, feeling the sun on your face, the city at your back, and realize that in this small apartment, in this tiny corner of Rome, you have everything you need. The rest of the world may rush on, but you are here in this moment, finding peace in the rhythms of the everyday. And for tonight, when you return, the same routines will be waiting for you. It will be quiet, and it will be full, and it will be enough. The sun has climbed higher by the time you reach the market, the warmth now pressing down on the city like an ancient weight. The cobblestones beneath your feet radiate heat, and the air feels thick, heavy with the aroma of fresh produce, meats, and baking bread. The familiar sights and sounds of the marketplace fill your senses. The friendly chatter of vendors calling out their wares, the rhythmic clinking of coins being exchanged, the occasional clamor of a cart being wheeled down the narrow lanes. There's something oddly comforting about this familiar chaos. Each morning, you join the long line of people gathering their daily necessities, but today, for some reason, the ritual feels a little different. Maybe it's the fact that you're becoming so used to the routine, or perhaps it's the simple satisfaction of knowing you'll return home to the same imperfect, cozy apartment after you've completed the morning errands. Either way, There's a calm to the frenzy of the marketplace, as though everyone knows their place in the dance of the day. You pass the fishmonger's stall, where the glistening slabs of fish are displayed in neat rows. The smell of salt and the briny tang of the sea are overwhelming, but the vendor's sharp eyes catch yours, and he gives you a nod of recognition. He always has a few extra fish to sell by the time you walk by, but you've learned not to take him up on the offer. You'll never be able to use them before they spoil, and besides, you're not sure how much you trust his fresh catch claims. You smile politely, acknowledging his greeting, and move on. The bakery stall is just up ahead. Its smell unmistakable, a blend of yeasty dough and the faint sweetness of honey. The baker's daughter hands you your usual, a warm crust of coarse wheat bread that's perfectly dense and satisfying. You pay, taking a moment to chat with her about the weather, how hot it's been, how dry it's felt recently, and for a brief second, you wonder what life would be like if you didn't have these small exchanges, these daily touch points with the people who make up your life in this city. Would it still feel like home? The market feels like the heart of the insula, a place where everything converges: food, gossip, old faces, new faces. As you walk along the stalls, you hear snippets of conversation: someone arguing over the price of olives, another person asking if the merchant has figs today. There's a hum in the air, an energy that pulses through the crowd. The market never feels completely still, even in its quiet moments. There's always someone moving, always someone looking for something. You make your way toward the fruit vendor. Today, there are ripe figs on display, their purple skins swollen with juice. The vendor gives you a smile and offers you a few samples. You take one, and the burst of sweetness is almost too much, a perfect contrast to the dry bread you've just purchased. The vendor talks about the harvest, how it's been a good season for figs, but the weather's been so unpredictable lately. He gives you a generous portion for a decent price, and you're on your way, feeling the familiar weight of your bread and figs in your hands. The market sounds begin to blend into one another as you walk back toward the fountain. The day is settling in, and the streets are starting to feel warmer, more crowded. You dodge a few children running in circles and step carefully around a donkey carrying a load of produce. The donkey's handler is whistling, calling out to someone down the street. You make a mental note to check the roof when you get back. The heat might be playing tricks on you, but it feels like it's been creaking more than usual lately. The walk back to your insula is always the same. A few minutes of dodging carts, stepping over cracks in the cobblestone, and trying to avoid looking too closely at the questionable puddles that always seem to form after the market crowds have gone home. As you make your way up the steps, you wave at a neighbor you barely know, who's leaning out of his window with a jug of water. He waves back and continues his muttering, though you can't make out the words. Inside, the coolness of your apartment is a welcome contrast to the heat of the day. You set your purchases down and take a moment to catch your breath. The noise from the street still drifts through your window. Voices, carts, a dog barking. But it feels different inside, quieter. The heat of the day hasn't reached this corner of your apartment yet, and the air feels almost fresh. You glance at your roommate, who's still at work on his carved rooster. The monkey, predictably, has climbed to its usual perch on the beam above, looking down at you as though it's the king of the world. You smile faintly, shake your head, and let out a small sigh. It's the same, and yet it's always a little different. The rhythms of your life here are full of familiar repetition, but it's in the smallest details, like the way the sun hits the floor in the afternoon, or the way the cat curls up beside you without being asked, that make it all feel like it belongs to you. The sun outside continues to climb, but inside the temperature is still bearable. You sit down, stretching your legs out in front of you, and let the stillness of the apartment wrap around you. This is the part of the day you've come to love, the moment when everything feels steady, when the rush of the morning has passed, and there's a chance to breathe, to simply exist. You glance out the window again, watching the familiar sights of Rome unfold below. Neighbors coming and going, children playing, the occasional stray dog wandering by in search of food. Life here is constantly in motion, and yet in its own way, it feels frozen in time. Even though you know tomorrow will come with its own small set of challenges, today you let yourself sit in this moment. For all its imperfections, for all its messiness, Rome is home. The rest of the world may be rushing ahead, but you're here, in this little apartment, finding peace in the simplicity of it all. The evening draws closer now, and with it, the familiar shift of the day into something more subdued, more intimate. The light outside is fading to a soft lavender as the sun dips lower, casting a golden glow over the rooftops and the crooked streets of Rome. The heat of the afternoon has finally loosened its grip on the city, and a cool breeze has begun to trickle through the open window, rustling the fabric of your curtain door and bringing with it a sense of calm. Inside your apartment, things are as they always are: quiet, slightly cluttered, and filled with the soft sounds of life. Your roommate is still absorbed in his carving, the rhythmic scrape of his knife against the wood, the only real sound in the room aside from the occasional chitter from the monkey, who is now awake and causing chaos by knocking over a jar that was, until moments ago, perfectly intact. You chuckle softly to yourself, watching the small creature scramble across the floor in an attempt to hide its guilty face. In this apartment, you've grown used to these little interruptions, these moments of minor disarray. They are part of the rhythm of life here, and in many ways, they make it feel more real. You lean back against the stone wall, stretching your arms above your head. The faint scent of something cooking in the building below, maybe beans, maybe a stew, wafts up through the cracks in the floorboards. It's always a strange comfort knowing that even if you don't have the energy to cook yourself, someone in the insula is making something that will fill the building with that familiar, savory smell. You glance over at your half-finished meal from earlier. A few olives, the last scraps of bread, and a small jug of wine. It's nothing fancy, but it's enough. It always is. There's no need for extravagance in a world like this, where each meal feels like a simple act of survival, a way to keep going until the next task, the next small moment of rest. And in that, there is a certain peace, an acceptance of the life you've made here. The soft shuffle of footsteps outside your door catches your attention, and you look up to see one of your neighbors, an elderly woman who lives 2 floors down, making her way past. She's carrying a basket, probably full of vegetables from the market, her hands steady despite her years. You give her a quiet wave and she offers a slow nod in return. There's a familiarity between the people who live in these narrow insulae, a silent understanding that you all share this space, this building, and in many ways, it makes you a little less alone. Even if you never speak much beyond the daily pleasantries, there's a kind of unspoken bond that ties you together. The monkey, having successfully avoided punishment for its earlier mischief, has now taken up a new pursuit, a stray piece of string that's caught on the beam. It flings itself toward it, tumbling gracelessly to the floor. Before righting itself with a triumphant chirp, you can't help but laugh, shaking your head. The chaos, as always, is in full swing. As the evening settles in, the sounds of the city change again. The voices from the street grow softer, replaced by the gentle murmur of people in their homes, winding down after another busy day. The faint clink of utensils against plates, the hum of conversation through the walls, and the occasional soft laughter all blend together in a low, comforting soundtrack to your evening. You rise from your mat, stretching out your legs, and make your way to the window. The view of the city at night is always a little magical, as though the buildings, the streets, the people, they all become part of the same collective dream. Their movements synchronized in a way that makes everything feel like it's supposed to be this way. The last traces of sunlight are slipping behind the horizon, but the city doesn't need the sun to live. The streets are still full of life, still full of stories, even under the cloak of night. From your vantage point, you can see the flickering of lanterns in the distance, the soft glow of torches along the alleyways, and the occasional figure moving through the darkness. The stars above, faint but steady, are beginning to make their appearance, twinkling through the gaps in the buildings, their light distant and yet somehow close. You wonder if the people who lived here before you saw the same stars, if they heard the same sounds echoing through the streets. You smile softly to yourself and turn away from the window, feeling the solemn pull of the night urging you to rest. The day has been long, full of small tasks, small moments, but it's been enough. It always is. Back inside your apartment, the soft light of your oil lamp flickers, casting a gentle glow over the room. The monkey has finally settled down again, curled in a tight ball, while your roommate continues his carving, the focus in his eyes as intense as ever. The quiet hum of the insula has returned, and for a moment everything feels still, like the city has paused just long enough to let you breathe. You settle back onto your mat, stretching out once more, and close your eyes. The noise from the street fades into the background, the city's rhythm becoming a lullaby that rocks you towards sleep. The small, constant details of life in Rome, the warmth of the day fading into the coolness of the evening, the smell of bread in the air, the comforting sounds of your neighbors, are the things that make it all feel real. And as you drift off to sleep, you realize that it's these small, seemingly insignificant moments that make up your life. The routines, the familiar faces, the shared spaces. They are the threads that weave together the fabric of your days in Rome. And in their quiet simplicity, they offer more than you could have ever asked for. The night is deep now, and the city hums softly under the blanket of darkness. Rome, it seems, never truly sleeps. Even at this late hour, the air still holds the echoes of the day, faint laughter, the low murmur of conversation, the sound of a cart rumbling down a distant street. But it's gentler now, more like a lullaby than the busy rush of midday. Your small apartment, bathed in the soft glow of the flickering oil lamp, feels like an island of calm amidst it all. The familiar sounds of your insula, the occasional cough from the floor above, the scratch of your roommate's knife against wood as he carves his latest project, fill the room with a steady rhythm. The monkey, finally settled into the far corner, has ceased its usual antics and is now quietly sleeping, the occasional twitch of its tail the only sign of its presence. You take a moment to breathe in the stillness, your mind quieting with each inhale. The day's rush has passed, leaving behind only the comfort of routine, of knowing what comes next. Tomorrow, you'll wake up again to the same patterns, the early morning walk to the market, the trip to the fountain, the same quiet tasks that make up your existence here. But for now, there is peace in knowing that, in this moment, you have everything you need. As your thoughts drift, you wonder about the lives of those who came before you, who once lived in these very buildings, in these narrow hallways, under the same ancient roof that now shelters you. Rome has changed much over the centuries, but in some ways it hasn't changed at all. The rhythm of life, the small daily acts of survival, the shared spaces, all of this has remained constant, threading through the centuries like an invisible thread. Outside, the faint glow of torchlight flickers on the street, casting shadows across the buildings. The city is settling, and so are you. You can hear the distant sound of a woman's voice singing softly in the street, a lullaby to her child, perhaps, or just a song to fill the silence of the night. It's a sound that could belong to any era, any generation, and it reminds you that you're part of something much larger than yourself, a living, breathing city that stretches back thousands of years. You let the song fade into the background as you lean back against the wall, your thoughts turning inward. This life, as simple and humble as it may be, is yours. The mess, the noise, the routines, they all make up the small piece of Rome you've carved out for yourself. And in a city that's known for its empires, its victories, and its grand history, that small piece is enough. You stretch your legs out and pull the blanket over yourself, the soft wool a welcome comfort against the cool evening air. The sounds of the street have grown quieter now, as if the city itself is slipping into a dream. The flickering light of the oil lamp dances on the walls, casting long, wavering shadows that seem to stretch out into the past, into the generations who once called this place home. The quiet in your apartment is complete now, save for the occasional creak of the old beams above. Your roommate has stopped carving, the knife resting beside him, and even the monkey sleeps soundly, its small form curled tightly into a ball. You close your eyes, letting the soft rhythms of the city seep into your consciousness. The day has come to a close, and with it, the peaceful, familiar feeling that comes with the end of another day in Rome. As you drift off to sleep, the last thought in your mind is simple, comforting. Tomorrow will come, and with it, another chance to live this quiet, imperfect life. The rhythms will continue, the noise will return, and the world will keep turning. But for now, in this small space, in this brief moment of stillness, there is only rest. And for tonight, that's all you need. The night stretches on, and sleep claims you gently, wrapping you in its soft embrace. The warmth of the blanket, the muffled sounds from the street below, and the rhythmic breathing of your roommate, and the monkey become part of the quiet tapestry of your dreams. The familiar sounds of your insula, the faint creaking of the building, the occasional stir of someone in the hall, blend into the background, and for a while the city feels far away. Yet, even in sleep, there is a sense of continuity. You know that when the first light of morning breaks through your window, the cycle will begin again, just like every day before it. But for now, in the stillness of the night, there is peace. The world is at rest, and so are you. You wake slowly, the first light of dawn sneaking through the cracks in your curtain door. The room is still dark, but you can feel the warmth of the sun beginning to creep in. The cool air of the early morning brushes against your skin as you stretch. Your body still heavy with sleep, but slowly waking, ready to face another day. The sounds of the city have already started, the quiet murmur of life beginning to stir beyond the walls of your small apartment. The routine is already unfolding, even if you're not quite ready to join it. Your roommate is already awake, though, judging by the soft clatter of his tools. You glance over at him, squinting in the dim light. He's back at his carving, still working away at that half-finished wooden rooster. You've stopped asking what he plans to do with it. He'll probably just keep carving until it's so worn down it's unrecognizable. It's a quiet ritual in itself, one that feels like part of the rhythm of your apartment. The monkey, predictably, is already up and about, though it's not causing any trouble, at least not yet. It's perched on top of a pile of linen, its large eyes fixed on you as though it's silently judging your every movement. You smile faintly, knowing full well that in the next few hours you'll be cleaning up after whatever chaos it creates. But for now, it's just another piece of the calm before the storm. You sit up and stretch, running a hand through your hair. The room is still cool, a reminder that the morning is young, and you take a moment to appreciate the stillness. It won't last long. Soon enough, the noise of the city will return. The clatter of carts in the street, the shouts of vendors setting up their stalls, the ever-present murmur of conversation that seems to echo from every corner of the insula. Rome never truly pauses. The world outside will always be moving, always be changing, but for now, you have a few quiet moments to yourself. The small comforts of your apartment, the worn mat beneath you, the familiar smells of cooking that will soon waft in from the kitchens of the neighbors, the rhythmic sounds of your roommate's carving. Fill the space, grounding you in the present. It's enough. And for now, that's all you need. You stand and make your way to the window, pulling back the curtain just enough to let the first rays of sunlight filter in. The city outside is still settling, the streets empty except for a few early risers heading to the bathhouse or the market. The quiet is almost surreal, like the city itself is holding its breath before it begins its usual bustle. You inhale deeply, taking in the crisp morning air, the faint scent of dust and herbs, and the promise of another day in this strange, beautiful place. As you turn away from the window, you catch sight of the small pile of bread and figs you bought yesterday. The bread is a little stale now, but it's still good, and you break off a piece, savoring the simple taste of it. You don't need much, after all. A piece of bread, a fig or two, and the knowledge that despite the noise and the chaos of it all, you are here. You are part of this ancient living city, just as much as the stones beneath your feet and the buildings around you. The monkey's chirping interrupts your thoughts, and you glance over to see it playing with your laundry, tugging at a tunic as though it's trying to help fold it. You shake your head, but there's no real frustration in it, just the familiar acceptance that this is how life is here. The monkey, the unfinished carvings, the noise and the mess, they're part of the tapestry of your days, just as much as the quiet moments of reflection, the familiar routines, and the small comforts that make life feel just right. You stand for a moment, looking around the room. It's small, cramped even, but it's yours. It's a space filled with the echoes of the past, the hum of daily life, and the small, imperfect beauty of living in the heart of Rome. You think about the day ahead, gathering water, making your way to the market, visiting your neighbors. The tasks are familiar, as always, but they're yours. And that in itself is a kind of comfort. As you prepare to step out into the day, the city beginning to stir around you, you can't help but feel a sense of peace. It's not the kind of peace that comes from silence or stillness. It's the peace that comes from living in the flow of life, embracing the noise, the chaos, the small routines that keep everything moving. Rome is vast, overwhelming, and at times exhausting, but it's home. And for now, that's enough. The early morning bustle begins to seep through your window, and you know it's time to face the day. The street outside is slowly filling with activity. The first of the vendors pushing their carts through the narrow lanes. The familiar sound of children's laughter echoing from down the block. The air is cool, but already thickening with the heat of the coming day. You can feel the city waking up around you, and with it, your own body comes alive, responding to the rhythm of the world just beyond your door. You rise from your mat, stretching once more, your body stiff from sleep but slowly finding its pace. The soft light from the window spills across the stone floor, casting long shadows that seem to stretch out toward the far corners of your small apartment. You step into the chill of the morning, and despite the clutter, despite the imperfections of your surroundings, there's a quiet sense of belonging in the space. It's yours, after all. Every creak of the floorboards, every crack in the walls, it all carries the weight of your existence here. You glance over at your roommate, still lost in the world of his carving. The wooden rooster, which has grown even more abstract with his constant adjustments, sits on the floor beside him. There's a method to his madness, you suppose. His carving is a slow, meditative process, and though it never quite takes shape as he imagines, it becomes something else entirely, a quiet testament to his patience, if not his skill. You don't mind, it's just one more piece of the puzzle that makes up your life here. The monkey, predictably, is already awake, swinging from the rafters with an energy that you can only describe as chaotic. You can't help but smile as it makes a series of high-pitched chattering noises, clearly pleased with itself. It's a small, silly creature, but it's somehow become part of your rhythm. You've stopped trying to make sense of its antics. It's simply there, adding its own brand of humor and mess to the day. You step over the pile of laundry that's scattered on the floor and move toward the window, pulling aside the curtain to let the morning light pour in. The street outside is already coming alive in earnest. Vendors call out to each other, carts roll by laden with vegetables, fish, and fruits. You can hear the low hum of conversation from your neighbors below, the casual banter and greetings exchanged as people prepare for the day ahead. For a moment, you just watch the activity below, taking it all in. The people, the street, the small rituals that unfold every morning. It's all so familiar now. It's hard to imagine life without these routines, these tiny, unremarkable moments that somehow come together to form the fabric of your existence here in Rome. You're not rich, you're not famous, but you are part of the pulse of this city, woven into its very life. The thought is comforting. You're not striving for greatness, you're simply living. You're here in this moment, breathing in the life of this place, and that's enough. You turn away from the window and move to gather your water jug. It's the first task of the day, heading to the fountain to fill your container. It's a simple task, but it's one that brings you into the flow of the city. It's the start of the cycle, the moment when you begin to interact with your neighbors, the street, and the marketplace. It's a small task, yet it somehow ties you into the rhythm of everyone around you. As you slip on your sandals, you glance back at your apartment, at the cracked walls, the patchwork of furniture, the worn rug beneath your feet. You could wish for more, for a larger space, for more luxury. But in truth, you've come to appreciate the simplicity of this place. It may be small, it may be imperfect, but it's yours. And in a city as vast and complicated as Rome, that's enough. Stepping into the hallway, you make your way to the stairs, careful to avoid the loose step that you know too well. The stairwell creaks underfoot, but you've grown accustomed to its sounds. There's something grounding about it. The steady creak of the stairs beneath you, the way they've molded to your daily tread. You're not the only one who has walked these stairs. The generations of people before you have left their marks in the walls, in the wear of the steps. You are just another part of this building's long history, adding your own quiet chapter to its story. The air outside feels different now. The coolness of the morning has given way to the warmth of the day. The street is a blur of motion, vendors shouting their prices, children running, donkeys trotting along with carts, and the occasional rooster crowing from a nearby rooftop. You make your way toward the fountain, feeling the pulse of the city around you as it gathers speed. As you wait your turn at the fountain, you overhear snippets of conversation, gossip about a missing scroll at the temple, news of a recent sale at the market, the usual talk of the weather. It's small talk, nothing significant, but in its own way, it connects you to everyone around you. It's a reminder that, despite the size of the city, everyone has their own little piece of Rome, their own rhythms, their own lives, intertwining in small, unseen ways. You fill your jug, nodding a quick thank you to the woman beside you, who helps to steady it, and then you head back to your apartment. The walk back is just as familiar. The sound of your footsteps on the cobblestone, the occasional shout from a neighbor, the soft rumble of carts passing by. The city doesn't stop, but you've learned to find comfort in its relentless motion. When you return to your apartment, the air feels warmer now, filled with the smells of cooking that drift up from the other apartments. The day is already in full swing, and the world outside is continuing to spin. But inside, for just a moment, you pause. You take in the stillness of your small space, the way it wraps around you, offering a sense of belonging, of home. And as you settle into your daily routine, you can't help but feel a deep sense of peace. This is your life, small, simple, imperfect. And in this moment, it's everything you need. As the morning deepens, the pace of the city picks up, and you're drawn into its momentum again. The hum of Rome feels louder now, filling the streets and the air around you. You step back into the insula, the stone hallway cool under your feet, and for a brief moment you pause. The door to your apartment hangs slightly ajar, the faint light of midday slipping through the crack. Inside, the air feels warmer now, thick with the smell of dinner being prepared somewhere below. The cat, who has taken up a permanent spot on the windowsill, stretches lazily in the sun, looking at you as if waiting for something, maybe a treat, maybe just attention. The monkey, true to form, is already up to its usual antics. This time, it's knocked over a jar of herbs that now spills across the floor like confetti. You chuckle to yourself. What else would you expect? Your roommate is, predictably, still hard at work on the rooster, though it looks even less like a rooster today than it did yesterday. There's a certain patience in his work, though. The carving doesn't really have any purpose, and it's certainly not something he plans to sell. But perhaps that's the point. It's not about the end result, it's the act of carving itself, the repetitive motion that fills his quiet moments, the rhythm of his day. You drop your water jug next to the door and sit down at the small table, taking a deep breath. The room is small, and it feels even smaller with the clutter of daily life. You don't mind. In fact, you've come to find comfort in the clutter. The bits of stray linen, the half empty jars, the bowl of dried figs you've been meaning to eat for a few days now. It's all part of the rhythm of life here. You've learned not to expect perfection. Life in Rome isn't about grandiose moments or dramatic stories. It's about the small, often overlooked things, the brief exchange of a smile with a neighbor, the way the light catches on the stone floor just before dusk, the familiar sounds of your building settling at night. It's a simple life, full of simplicity's quiet rewards. The day passes like this. Nothing extraordinary happens, and yet everything happens. You wash your hands in the communal basin, greet the neighbor, who always brings too many figs, and help your roommate search for his missing sandal. The air grows warmer as the sun climbs higher. The sound of carts rumbling through the streets grows louder, and the marketplace begins to fill with people and goods. You hear the soft strains of a musician playing a lute somewhere outside, the notes drifting through the open window like a distant memory. But even in this busyness, you find yourself relaxed, a small part of the rhythm of it all. It's easy to forget how much life happens in the quiet moments, the ones that don't get recorded in history, the ones that don't leave a mark on the world. Here, no one is famous, no one is important, and yet there is something deeply satisfying in that. To simply exist, to be part of something much larger, to contribute your own small piece to the ever-turning wheel of Rome. Later, as the sun begins to dip lower, you find yourself standing by the window again, watching the city shift as evening falls. The light has softened, turning from gold to the deep orange of sunset. The shadows stretch across the rooftops, and you can feel the quiet hum of the city as it prepares for the night. This, too, is a rhythm. The way the day slips into night, the way the marketplace quiets down, and the noises from the street begin to mellow, replaced by the sounds of families gathering, the crackle of evening fires, and the occasional clink of coins exchanged in the distance. It's a comfort knowing that the city will always move, always shift, but it will never lose its pulse. You turn away from the window, the faint colors of the sunset lingering in your mind. The small apartment feels more like home as the evening deepens. There is a warmth here, not from the fire or the light, but from the simple fact that you are here, in this space, living these moments. The clutter, the chaos, the small imperfections, it all adds up to something more than the sum of its parts. The monkey, now perched on a stack of old pots, looks at you with its usual impish grin, as if to remind you that even in the smallest moments, there is joy. Your roommate has finally stepped away from his carving and is sitting on the floor, contentedly munching on a crust of bread. Outside, the sounds of the city begin to dim as evening sets in, the voices quieting as people retire for the night. For a moment, you sit in the soft glow of your apartment, the hum of the city fading into the background. This is it, you think, the simplicity of it all, the peace in the quiet chaos of your life. Tomorrow will be just like today, and the day after that, and the day after that. The rhythm will continue just as it always has, just as it always will. And in the end, that's enough. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the gentle sounds of the evening settle in your mind. The city, your small apartment, your everyday tasks, they're all part of something bigger than you. And that's enough to carry you through day after day, moment after moment. Tonight, you'll sleep, and tomorrow, you'll rise and live it all again. The morning light creeps through the cracks in your window, the soft glow of dawn mingling with the familiar sounds of the city beginning to stir. You can hear the first murmurs of activity from the street, the shuffling of feet, the clink of coins, the distant calls of vendors setting up their stalls. It's a sound that, over time, has become more comforting than intrusive. It signals the start of another day in Rome, another day in this small corner of the world that you've come to know so well. You stretch, your body still heavy with sleep, and slowly rise from your mat. The morning air is cool, a gentle breeze slipping through the open window, carrying with it the faint scent of fresh bread from the bakery below. The warmth of the day is yet to come, but for now, The coolness of the early hours offers a brief reprieve from the relentless heat that will soon take over. The monkey, as usual, is already awake, chattering excitedly in its corner as it surveys the room. It seems to have a natural instinct for the start of the day, always the first to rise, always the first to make a mess. You smile to yourself, a small, affectionate smile, as you watch the little creature dart from one corner to the next, its curiosity ever unbound. Even now, in the early morning stillness, it manages to bring a sense of life to the room, a reminder that everything here, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, has a rhythm of its own. Your roommate is still asleep, a soft snore escaping him as he lies sprawled across his blankets, his unfinished carving lying beside him. The rooster has made little progress since yesterday, though if you're being honest, it barely looks like a rooster at all anymore. But that's part of his charm, isn't it? The absence of any grand plan, the simple, meditative act of carving for the sake of carving. It's the kind of pursuit that leaves no room for perfection, and in that there's something beautifully peaceful. You glance around the room. It's small, cluttered, but it's yours. There's a sense of quiet satisfaction in the way everything fits together. Your mat, your few belongings, the worn jug of water sitting on the table. It's not much, but it's everything you need. The walls might be cracked, the floor uneven, but this place holds the rhythm of your life. This apartment is where you wake up, where you eat, where you rest at the end of the day. It's home, in every sense of the word. You step toward the window, pulling the curtain back just enough to let the sunlight pour in. The street outside is alive with activity now, the vendors shouting their prices, children running past barefoot, the occasional donkey pulling a cart. The noise isn't intrusive. It's part of the landscape. It's what makes this city feel alive, constantly moving, always shifting. You're part of that flow, just like the people moving through the streets, just like the vendors hawking their wares, just like the workers who are already hard at it, preparing for another day of labor. You take a moment to appreciate the view, the rooftops of the insulae across the street, the flickering of lanterns still visible in the early morning light, the familiar shapes of your neighbors' homes. It's not a view that most would envy, but to you, it's perfect. It's Rome, in all its chaotic, imperfect glory. And it's home. The morning routines begin to unfold around you. Your neighbor across the hall is already sweeping the steps, the familiar scrape of the broom against the stone floor ringing in your ears. You hear the distant sound of water being drawn from the communal well, and the soft murmur of voices as people begin to greet each other, exchanging the usual pleasantries. It's a small world, this insula, but it's your world. You know the rhythm, the ebb and flow of the day, and though nothing about it is extraordinary, it's more than enough. You grab the water jug and step into the hallway, making your way down the stairs with practiced ease. The building creaks and groans beneath your feet, but you know it well now. Each step, each creak has its own place in the symphony of this apartment. The stairs might be uneven, the hallways narrow, but they're home. As you reach the bottom, you step out into the quiet of the street, the warmth of the day beginning to touch the air. The market is in full swing now, and the smells, fresh bread, fried dough, roasting meats, fill the air. You move through the crowd with ease, exchanging greetings with a few familiar faces as you make your way toward the fountain. There's something comforting about the market, about the way it remains the same every day, the same vendors, the same goods, the same faces. It's a routine that you've come to rely on, a rhythm that keeps you grounded. You pause at the fountain, waiting your turn as others fill their jugs. The chatter around you is low but constant, the hum of the city in its natural state. You exchange a few words with the woman next to you, commenting on the weather or the state of the figs this season. It's small talk, yes, but it's also a connection, a reminder that in this vast, sprawling city, you are part of something. You belong here, in the ebb and flow of this life. You return to your apartment, the jug of water heavy in your hands, and as you climb the stairs back up, you feel that familiar sense of peace settle over you again. It's a small world here, but it's your world. It's filled with the simple things, the familiar faces, the small moments of connection, the quiet routine of the day. And in that simplicity, there's a kind of contentment, a feeling that no matter how big the city, how busy the world, here in this apartment, in this small part of Rome, you are exactly where you are meant to be. As you open the door and step back inside, you smile softly. The monkey, the unfinished carving, the steady hum of the city outside, it's all part of the same rhythm. And that rhythm, it's more than enough.